Benjamin Squires is an award-winning composer for film, television, advertising, and video games from Sheffield. Benjamin is making waves in the industry and seems to be at the top of everyone's list when it comes to trailer compositions, having now composed trailer music for some of the biggest films and companies of recent years, including Spider-Man Far From Home, Knives Out, The Shape of Water, and His Dark Materials, just to name a few. Benjamin creates original scores for countless short films every year. It would be impossible to name them all. So it's not a surprise that in 2017, when Nicholas Connor was looking for a composer for Cotton Wool, Benjamin was his first port of call. Benjamin's score is not only beautiful, but creates perfect parallels to the film's visual and thematic style. And it's not surprising that the film won Best Original Score at the TMFF Awards and was nominated for the same category at the British Independent Film Festival Awards. There's no doubt that composers sometimes go unnoticed, underappreciated, and not talked about near enough. And that is why I'm delighted and intrigued to be talking to the amazing Benjamin Squires.
How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing okay, thanks, on this lovely lockdown sunny day. How are you?
How are you doing in lockdown?
It's fine. I mean, like, life doesn't... life has barely changed for me. I think people forget how kind of solitary and isolated we already are doing this job, to be honest. It's a pretty lonely job, but I mean, you get used to it, and I'm kind of a fan of it now as well. I enjoy working alone, and I've got to enjoy the presence of just my own company doing work, so it's all good. I'm completely fine in the lockdown. The only thing that's changed is that my partner is now working from home, and so she's home all the time, so I get to see her all the time. It's nice. It's kind of been fine. Obviously, it's not great. I'm a virus spreading around the world, but it's all good for now. We're okay. So that's all I can ask. Healthy and happy. It's all good.
Yeah, it's quite a lonely and isolating job, isn't it? You spend hours of the day just sat in a room looking at a computer screen.
Yeah, that's literally it. It's always been like that, and I do enjoy the moments where I get to obviously be more sociable and share my ideas with whoever I'm collaborating with. But yeah, generally 95% of the time it's just me sat in the room behind me, just working away, really, and that's kind of as it will always be.
So when Nick first approached you about Cotton Wool, what made you first get on board with it?
Well, I think I'd worked with Nick before on something. I think we just met through kind of mutual friends and a mutual course that we had been on, which was ran through the BFI and the National Film and Television School. We kind of met through that. I think we weren't on the same year or the same course, but I think he was eventually saying, I've got something that I've made, and I'd like to do it. And he showed me something else that he'd made. I remember specifically that when Nick showed me the film, it was essentially done. I came in late enough that I was able to watch it and get a good feel of what he wanted, and we talked enough to understand that I would have been a pretty good fit for it, and I'd get straight to work, really.
Yeah. How did that process go with Nick? What were the discussions like? What kind of discussions were you having?
I know Nick showed me a lot of scores that he liked for the sort of film that he was wanting to make, which is always helpful. It helps us get on the same page and make sure that I'm not straying down a path that is not at all a good idea for Cotton Wool. But I mean, there's only so much you could have kind of. It's a very specific tone of film, and I think our creative paths were always going to align on this sort of thing, and me and Nick get along very well, so it was very simple to simply have a conversation about the tone of the film and the sort of music that he liked, and even instrumentation and stuff like that. And Nick's fluent enough to talk about the kind of sound that he likes and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it was a pretty simple process, really, of jumping in.
Yeah. Do you remember what those kind of inspirations were?
Yeah, I remember. I'm sure we spoke about the sound of The Theory of Everything,
Mhm.
the film that Johan Johansson scored a long time ago now, maybe like 7 years or so. It's a very sort of delicate piano-y drama score, and it's unlike other stuff that he had done at the time. And that was a good influence. And then other than that, I think it was actually Nick was I'm very appreciative that Nick was very happy to let me kind of have free reign. Like I don't think I even saw the film with temp music, which is
Wow.
obviously quite unusual at this stage. Like usually if it was done, there'd probably be a score in there, but I don't seem to remember having um, having seen the film with a temp score, which probably helped because it was the first time that I see the film. I like to go in as fresh as I can so that I'm not influenced by whatever the director thinks is currently working. Because if I hear something that the director thinks is working, then I may have just squashed any chance of coming up with something that we never
Mhm.
saw as an option. So it's nice to go in fresh because yeah, there's always that chance that I could say to Nick, "Well, what about this? What if we try this angle instead for here?" And Nick had never thought about that, obviously, because he'd already filled it with temp music. So yeah, it's always nice to not have that. So I'm grateful for directors who are able to have the confidence to come at me with a film and say it's a fresh, canvas. I have ideas, but feel free to take a stab and let's talk about it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Does that make your job easier then?
Well, no, not necessarily. It makes the job better, but it doesn't. It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily make it easier. There is a definite sort of comfort blanket feeling about temp music because it immediately gets in line. Like I said, it gets you straight in line with what Nick specifically was after. So it's very easy to tap into that tone pretty quickly and not copy, but replicate the feeling that temp music was going for. The opposite case is that obviously there is no temp, and the director doesn't necessarily know quite what he's after. In which case, the canvas can be so broad that you're stabbing it in directions that you shouldn't be even close to. So there's a good and a bad to temp music. It definitely helps you get straight in there, knowing the kind of sound you're after. But as I said before, you end up subconsciously limiting yourself because you can't see past the original intention that the director had, and there might be a better answer. You never know.
Yeah. What originally got you into composing right at the start, right at the very start?
Happy accidents, just along the lines of life. To be honest, I like played keyboard when I was like 10 years old. Not even piano, like literally just simple keyboard, just chords and in the left hand and melody in the right. And I liked it, and I really found myself like quite good at it at that young age, but like not to a point where I wanted to progress any further. Like I kind of just stopped. I stopped going to the weekend lessons and stuff, and I guess I was probably too busy just playing Xbox and stuff like that at the time, and that was kind of filling my time a bit better, as all teenagers do. But eventually, I did music tech in this was still in secondary school, and that kind of showed me little bits of bobs of ideas of putting sounds together and arranging things in a way that I hadn't kind of discovered before, simply just playing the keyboard. And then I took a diversion again and started doing art instead for like a few years. And then eventually I did game design in college, and I did that for a year. And again, that wasn't really working out. And so I dropped from that and then did A levels instead, at which point I did music tech and media studies. And I don't know if you did media studies in college, but they kind of asked you, at least when I did it, they asked you to make like a 2-minute film in your first year and a 5-minute film in the second year. And for the 2-minute film that I did in the first year, I did a little bit of music for it. That was the first time I'd ever done any music for any picture, and I liked it, and I thought it was really interesting. And so I did it again the year after for the 5-minute short film. All the meanwhile doing music tech and learning about, the literally the tech behind it and all that sort of stuff. So I was never, classically trained or anything like that, and never have been, and I doubt I'll find the time to ever be trained now. So I'm just running with this. And essentially, as I mentioned, that film course that was run by the BFI opened up, and they were looking for like 54 16 to 19-year-olds who were interested in film and wanted to do just play a role in filmmaking. And you go down and live in like a little hotel thingy for 2 weeks, and you could either apply to be a director, a soundie, or a cinematographer, a producer, or something else that I can't remember. And anyway, everybody obviously wanted to be a director at that time. When you're like 16 to 19-year-olds, when you think about making films, you think of the guy who it's their vision. It's the director's vision. That is what filmmaking is, and you kind of don't realize back then that there's so many other outlets to filmmaking that are just as important, really, that you kind of forget about. And anyway, so I got down there. I realized I wasn't nearly as good a director as I wanted to be, or any of the other 16 to 19-year-olds were. And so at the end of this 2-week course, we were meant to network with people higher up at the end of it when we screened our films. And instead, I realized I wanted to network with all of us lot and basically say, actually, I kind of really like doing music for film, and I'd like to do some music for you, whatever the next thing you make is, because all these people are so talented and we're clearly going to do stuff. And literally, the kind of ball started rolling from there, and I was doing a lot of free music while I was I came home from that, and I was just a waiter in a restaurant, and I did that basically every day, every week, like 6 a.m. till 12 p.m. the morning shift, setting up the hotel stuff, and then I'd come home and do music the rest of the day for these students and writing, and it was good fun, and I realized I was having a good time doing it. I wasn't making a lot of money, and it was hard, and I was very appreciative to be able to live with my mum at the time. And eventually, just the ball rolls and the name passes around, and you make a little bit more money this year than you did the last, and suddenly you can start questioning, can I do this full time? Can I suddenly become freelance? And kind of have to take the dive eventually. And back in 2015, so not even that long ago now, but 5 years ago, 5 years this December, I said, let's just go for it. And that's it, really. That, as they say, the rest is history. And thankfully, work has been good and constant, and many different kinds of work. And yeah, that was a very long-winded question. I just realized it answers to how did you get started, but it kind of all just sort of links in. I sort of didn't start. It just kind of happened happily and continued.
You find that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, it's always happy accidents. People don't seem to ever want to get into the profession that they end up doing, not in a bad way, but like it kind of happens, and then you realize that you enjoy it a lot, and that's kind of it. And you realize you don't need to be writing and directing Hollywood movies anymore, and you're kind of content doing the thing that you are doing.
Obviously, you've done trailer music for some of the biggest films of the last few years. What's it like doing work on stuff like that?
It's very different. It's very different to working on Cotton Wool, that's for sure. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to see footage beforehand. Sometimes it's literally writing blind to a written brief, as in like I'll get like an email which is literally just like for the Spider-Man one that I did the teaser for Far From Home, and they didn't specifically say it was Spider-Man, but it's like you can't keep that stuff secret in a written brief about what they were wanting, like talking about like spider sense and stuff like that, and like a hidden sense and all these sort of things.
And you have web sounds.
Yeah, I was like, I wonder who that could be. So essentially, like you will literally write a 2.5 minute trailer track for this written brief of what they're after, and if it starts ticking boxes for, first of all, the editors of the trailer that they're making, and then if they're happy, then they'll put it in their cut of the trailer, and then they'll send that on to the studio, being Disney or Sony, and then you kind of start getting feedback from everybody, and it comes back to you eventually, and then if you're lucky, you work on it further. If you're even luckier, they will just pick a track that they have of yours that they like, and they will mold the trailer around the track for you, which is common, to be fair. Like, there's a lot of tracks kind of on trailer music albums that are just out there waiting to be used. Nowadays, it's a lot more custom work, like for written briefs and stuff, as opposed to just cherry picking a track that works. But yeah, that's kind of how it works. And then suddenly you'll kind of get a notification, an email, a message from the publisher of the music, and they'll be like, yeah, it's been used, and that's always exciting. It's kind of hard to believe at first. It's also hard to believe because you shouldn't ever believe it until you see the trailer online, because things can go wrong. And things can go very, very wrong all the time. Like, I literally did not know that my music was going to be in the Spider-Man teaser until it came up, and then I watched the trailer, and suddenly halfway through I heard it, and I was like, I really recognize that sound. That's weird. And then I realized it was playing my music for the rest of it, and I was kind of gobsmacked, and it was a surreal moment. And it was a great moment, obviously. But yeah, it's much, much different. You kind of can write very unrealistically with like the sizes of the orchestra and stuff, you know. You basically throw everything at the wall until it literally more is more. It's not less is more for trailer music. It's always more is more, which is good and bad. But more than anything, it's different to writing for short films, and I prefer writing for films and TV, because I like marrying the image and the picture. That's kind of what I've always been interested in. That's why I started trailer music. Again, a happy accident that I fell into, and you know, it's been very good, and it's been very kind to me, thankfully. I hope it will continue to be.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking the time.
No worries.
Out on your busy day, I imagine.
Yeah. But I'm actually going to go and play what I said. I'm back to my Xbox now. I'm going back to my kids. I'm going to spend all day on that. But I got to have a break sometimes, so I may as well make the most of it.
Yeah, of course you have. Thank you. Nice
to speak to you soon.
A huge thank you to Benjamin there, and thank you so much for watching. Cotton Wool is finally out now. The link is in the description to watch the film. I promise you'll enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching.